Good evening, folks. I see our meeting is now streaming live on YouTube, so I'll call to order our Prescott Town Council meeting for Monday, December 7th, 2020. As usual, it's a virtual meeting this evening, still working at making sure we flatten that curve with COVID. So I'll call the meeting to order and immediately go to item 2, our approval of the agenda for this evening. Recommendation is that the agenda for the council meeting of December 7th, 2020 be approved as presented. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Shankar, seconded by, I think, Councillor Ostrander. Any discussion on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks, everyone. Item 3, declarations of interest. Any declarations from members of council this evening? Seeing none. Thanks again, everyone. Item 4, presentations. Nothing tonight. 5 delegations. Ditto. Takes us right to item 6, minutes of our previous council meeting. And under 6.1, we have the council minutes for a meeting of November 16th, 2020. Recommendation there, as always, that the council minutes of November 16th, 2020 be accepted as presented. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Young, seconded by Councillor Burton. Any discussion on that set of minutes? Thanks, everyone. I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Item 7, communications and petitions. Nothing there this evening. Item 8, consent reports. And we do have 2 items here under the consent reports this evening. 8.1 is the council information package. 8.2 is the staff report 89-2020, the financial report from October 2020. I believe Councillor Young, you'd like to separate those this evening for discussion?
Yes, Mayor Todd, I would like to do that separation so we could talk about staff report 89-2020.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Young. So we'll separate those. So under 8.1, we have the council information package. So the motion would read, Ms. Veltkamp, do we have the standard wording for that we accept the council information package?
Yeah, we could say through you, Mr. Chair, that 8.1 council information package be accepted under consent reports on the agenda.
Okay, so we'll put that motion forward. That's the recommended motion. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor McConnell. Seconder, please.
No. Sorry.
Yeah.
I had my hand up earlier. You didn't see me. I have a question in regards to something on the information package.
Yeah, we'll move into that in a moment, Council. We'll just get the agenda. We'll just handle this like we used to. So we'll introduce the motion and then I'll open it up for discussion. So, Councillor McConnell, are you okay moving that?
Certainly.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ostrander. I think I saw your hand up seconding that.
I'm good.
So on the floor. So we'll go immediately to Councillor McConnell and open up discussion on the council information package items this evening. Lee, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. My question is in a report from the Police Services Board. And in that report, they're reflecting on the minutes of October 29th. And I know you're at that meeting, so you can probably answer this. In the month of September, they report that we had 126 cruiser hours, 15 hours of foot patrol. And what I'm wondering about is 7.75 hours of marine patrol. Now, given the fact that we don't have any streets on the water, the town of Prescott ends at the waterfront, why are we paying for marine patrol? Or is this some kind of a mistake? Perhaps you can answer that.
We actually didn't discuss that. That didn't come up in the meeting. Councillor Ostrander, if you're on there with me, of course. I don't recall that when being discussed. I know they've done a little more these past 7-8 months, whatever it is now, with regards to border patrols, just regarding COVID and the possibility of people coming over the border from the U.S. During the border closure period. But I can take that back to Inspector Graves. I can send, if I could refer that on to staff as a question for the inspector on that one, just to get a little clarity on that. But thanks for raising that, Councillor McConnell. That's a good question to ask about. But I do know they were expanding the Marine Patrol hours here, and I don't think it's anything directly connected with patrol in Prescott, but it's from that detachment. So I believe that's what generates the billing. Mike, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that? I don't remember this coming up before, although it was discussed briefly earlier in the year.
Yeah, I don't think so. I know there was the drowning up in the Brockville area there, and they eventually brought the body over to our wharf. Whether they count that in or not, that was just the last month, like November. It wouldn't have been October that they're referring to. So I'm not sure. I'm like you. I have noticed that they've put in a few more marine hours this year than previously. So perhaps it's a cumulative thing in some way.
It did come up either at PSB or at one of our emergency control group meetings at one point, but not any extensive conversation. But it was raised just about the border issues with the U.S. in the summer, because obviously that was happening a little bit, I think more frequently down in the Thousand Islands area, but it was a concern that was raised locally here as well during one of our meetings. I just can't remember exactly when. But if we could just refer that on, Ms. Velkamp, if you could follow that up with the inspector and just see if we can get some clarity on that. And actually, it's a good question just about billing overall. If there is a recovery of a body or anything that actually is an incident in the water, I'm guessing because Grenville County is resources are going to it, we would get the billing for that. But that's actually a good question to raise. I don't think we've ever really discussed that one before. That's a good question. That good, Councilor McConnell. We'll get an answer for that back for you on that.
Yeah, that's fine. I just couldn't understand why we would be getting billed for marine hours when the river is clearly a federal responsibility. And if it's got something to do with Border Patrol, well, that's got nothing to do with us either. You do make a very good point, though. If a body is recovered and comes into our dock, well, obviously that's police, and how do they, but if they're looking for a body off Augusta Township and they're bringing it to our dock, I don't know whether we should be billed for that or not, or whether it's a good question to ask. I think some clarification needs to be given.
Yeah, it's a good point, especially if it does ever come to generate significant number of hours. Like if this is going to be an ongoing thing, we should have some clarity on what we're paying for and why. Good point. Anyone else have any comments, questions on the information package this evening? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of accepting that report? Motion is carried. So return to the, as I move back to, so return back to 8.2 now. That's staff report 89, 2020 and the financial report for October. Councillor Young, over to you for any comments, questions on that.
Well, this exercise didn't quite work out the way I thought it might, but it was more, it was as much an exercise for us to see how the separation of some reports from the consent agenda would work. I guess it would have worked better if there had been 10 or 15 items on the consent agenda. However, this is a significant report that I'm sure Matthew would like to talk about. It completes 10 months of our year, and as we start talking about budget, it's probably a good exercise to get back into dealing with these numbers. So perhaps Matthew would like to highlight a few more things than as he did in the report.
Certainly. Any comments on that report?
Certainly, we can do that here. I think the procedural bylaw suggested that we would move it down to staff reports and discuss it at that point, but it's certainly council's wish as to where they would want to discuss it.
Let's do it here for now, Matthew, but yeah, in the future. So and that's something I should know, but the new procedural bylaw has us, if items are pulled from the consent agenda, they move down to staff.
That's correct.
Okay. So we'll use that policy going forward, but tonight let's just cover it here if we could.
Okay, thank you very much. So you'll see in this report in particular, I tried to identify where some of the pressures were in terms of revenue. And so as we previously discussed, marriage licenses, lottery licenses, wedding ceremony fees, Commissioner of Oaths, are all being affected by COVID-19. Interest on our high interest savings account obviously is drastically affected. We were earning 2.41% on that account, and then it's dropped to 0.9%. As of January 1st, it will drop even further to 0.165%. So it certainly is a drastic area where we're seeing a lot of pressure. Interest from property taxes, it's not related to COVID. That's more in relation to the fact that we have been successful in driving down some of those balances. And so therefore, we're not earning as much in interest and penalties. That's a good news as well as a bad news item. Firstly, by collecting those outstanding, then certainly there's not penalties incurred, but at the same time, it was a revenue item and therefore it's going down. Provincial offenses, certainly that has been drastically affected, and our share, it's part of the joint services budget. And so what we're seeing here is the fact that the courts have been closed for much of 2020 and likely to fold into 2021 as well, that convictions and fines just aren't being levied in the same way and to the same extent. So we're expecting a significant issue there. When we go through kind of some of the other items, the record revenue recreation programs, marina, pool, community center, library, and tourism, all of those revenues that are going to be under budget, we have been successful in saving enough to be able to cover all of those under budget amounts off and then a little bit extra. So we're happy to speak from that standpoint. Probably at this point, we're talking in the neighborhood of $80,000 to $90,000, where we could apply some of that COVID grant funding that we received in the amount of $266,900. When we take a look at the expenditure side, year to date, there's only a couple of things that are a little bit over. Social services, and that's just due to the timing of payments for St. Lawrence Lodge for their debt payments, so no concern there. Environmental, we are over in terms of our waste management, waste collection and disposal, and that has, there's been two effects of that. One is just due more volume of garbage with more people being at home and not being able to be out as much. And then secondly, we're also incurring fees to actually tip the fibers as well as mixed recycling that we collect on a weekly basis, and so that it goes into the recycling stream. But at the same time, they're, instead of taking it for free, they're now charging to receive those goods. And finally, health services, that's overdue primarily to the cemetery expense, but it's offset by revenue, so no concern there. One major change for this month that you'll have seen was the transportation budget certainly caught up to its year to date, and that's because we did receive the billing for the paving, and so that's now in there. And then any additional costs related to COVID, as I mentioned earlier, can be offset by the COVID grant funding, and we're certainly working towards being able to only use a portion of that for this year, so that as required by the stipulations on that we could use it again in 2021 to be able to help offset some of those concerns. Cash flow, year to date, we're actually doing fairly well. The two major things that are coming out in December are both this third and fourth quarter for school board taxes, and it's approximately $600,000. So we have received the snowplow debenture funds. They were received last week, and then we will continue receiving water and wastewater revenues from Rideau St. Lawrence. So all told, we're kind of expecting to be pretty much where we started the year in terms of cash, which is good news, and considering all of the cost pressures and decreases in revenue. But so we're happy from that perspective. And that's my report in a nutshell. Thank you.
Very much, Mr. Armstrong. Councillor Young, any further comments, questions as Chair of Finance?
Just a question, Matthew, about the year-to-date actual revenue over year-to-date actual expenses. That we're running quite a bit ahead. Is there a couple of big things coming up in the next 2 months that is going to level that out a bit?
We're fairly far ahead because of the timing of property taxes. So because they're billed in the first portion of the year, then all of the top property taxes by the end of October are accounted for, whether they're received or not. And so that's why in the last 2 months of the year, we're expecting not to generate a great deal of revenue because it's kind of been collected and earned in those first 10 months. And so that's where you're going to see revenue being under budget for the last 2 months. And then we would expect expenses to flow fairly evenly. So by the end of the year, we expect to be balanced, and so good news from that perspective. But at the same time, the next 2 months will be a draw on cash.
Okay, so we won't go run out this month and spend $1 million thinking that we have that kind of surplus.
I would very much appreciate if we did not. But certainly it's a great question.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Young. One sort of side comment on this is there's some comments about Rideau St. Lawrence utilities. I did have a conversation with Hugh George a little while ago, our representative on the board of RSL, and I did ask him to come and present to council in the not too distant future, just to sort of review where they were at with the overall year and what the status is there, because obviously it's been a challenging year for them a little bit as well. So I think things are going to be adjusted a little bit with what we see from RSL. But actually, and Matthew, do we have anything back from them yet on a request for when they're going to come in to talk to us early in the new year, I'm hoping?
Yes, I would suggest that. So we will schedule for the 4th or the 18th of January.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any other comments, questions on that staff financial update tonight? Seeing no, so I'll ask for a motion to accept. Ms. Velkamp, any particular wording we need here for this to reflect that it's a separated part of the consent agenda?
For you, Mr. Chair, it was just for information. We don't need a motion.
So we're absolutely good then if we just separate it off as an information item. We don't need a separate vote.
Yep.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. So moving along, we do have, we're up to item 9. So committee reports, nothing there this evening because we've had no committee meetings, of course. 10, mayor's portion of the evening. Just a couple quick updates. I just wanted to comment on the housing committee that we're running right now with our partners at the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville. We have had a number of meetings of that group. We've actually coming to sort of the midway point of the work there. This group is actually looking at affordable housing and community and social housing across all of the United Counties, sort of trying to sort of reset the agenda there on what we're doing overall for affordable housing. Obviously, there is more than a bit of a crisis with affordable housing in Leeds, Grenville, and elsewhere in Ontario right now. And we're trying to make sure that we're all working together and we're all positioning ourselves to take advantage of federal and provincial opportunities, and also to make sure we see some development and work with developers to provide affordable housing, and also perhaps to provide more housing overall. There is a possibility we could expand the look of this group. I did wanted to mention this because we are coming back to that group on December I believe it's the 16th, a week from Wednesday, and that will excuse me, that will be the day where we look at all our recommendations through both staff and also the individual mayors and municipalities. And from that point, we're going to generate something of a midway report with some common ground that we've all agreed to look at. That will come back to the councils as well, so we can all get a look at it and give some input now that we've sort of gone down the road and sort of started to fine tune things. Most of what we've done so far has been information gathering, talking to various provincial and other officials from housing groups to try to get an idea of what we can do. And now we've got to sort of decide what we should do. So we'll bring that back to council for a pretty full discussion on how Prescott can be involved there as we go forward. So we'll get everybody's take on what we're looking at there for housing. Also wanted to mention briefly Eastern Ontario Regional Network. We are a partner, of course, with EORN, and we did, of course, receive the money I believe it was a year and a half ago now, we did receive federal and provincial funding with regards to the EORN project to expand cellular broadband reach in all of Eastern Ontario. Just wanted to let everyone know that EORN, I do sit on the board as the representative of the Mayor's Caucus. At EORN, we did choose the proponent for the program about a month ago. From the two bidders, Rogers and Bell. We are not announcing the actual proponent who won the bid right now, just for some privacy and some security reasons. But that will go forward publicly, likely in March. Both the feds and the province want to be involved in a fairly significant announcement there, because this obviously is a significant project. It's in the tune of $300 million plus, as has been noted, for Eastern Ontario. So it's going to generate a lot of economic development. It's going to help fill some gaps out there when it comes to cellular internet service. And I think everyone will be quite happy with what the project will achieve in terms of setting the goals that were set out for us early on. So I think it's going to be a really good news story for all of Eastern Ontario. More on that when I'm able to talk about it. And the St. Lawrence Quarter Economic Development Commission, we had a meeting on November 25th. We're meeting again. That's also December 16th in the afternoon in Brockville. We're sort of looking at a bit of a revamp of the corridor structure. We've had to make some changes on the fly this year with regards to COVID, of course, and pivot a little bit towards helping our local companies retain staff and add staff, as opposed to just looking mostly at attraction from outside the area. So that's ongoing, and we'll have something back to council after that meeting on the 16th, where we once more, all the mayors and our industrial representatives get together and talk about some shifting priorities and hopefully some good improvements for the St. Lawrence Corridor Ec Dev Commission. I think it's been very successful, quietly successful, I will say. I think we've got to improve in the reporting back to the public and to councils. And hopefully we're going to achieve that with some of the changes we're contemplating there and we put into place hopefully as of next week. So that's it for me this evening on what I have to report. And I'll move along then to 11, the outside boards, committees, and commissions, and open it up as always, alphabetically, of course, with Councillor Burton.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Looking forward to having a first cemetery board meeting on Friday. So it's been a long old haul, but according to the bylaw, we have to meet twice a year. So we're definitely going to do the social distance in the Ruth Evanson room on Friday. And also looking forward to getting together and talking about our rink fundraising. So we will definitely be getting together next week. I believe it's on Tuesday at 6 o'clock at the Ruth Evanson room. So just the committee is meeting there and hopefully finding out how everybody's doing with their fundraising on the side. So, and that's it for me. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much for bringing up the arena meeting. We should have some good news to reveal after that. And big thanks, of course, to Judy Bree and David Beattie for heading up that group for us. Thank you. So next off, Councillor Jasmine, please.
Thank you. Economic development. I've met with the staff, and it's a lot is going on in that area. However, nothing to report other than our official plan is moving along as scheduled with the providers that are doing the work there. I'm not sure if it was the Heritage Committee or the staff, but I was nicely surprised to see that Founders Day was acknowledged a little bit anyway, with the virtual videos done by Fraser. So I would encourage all to go to the town's Facebook page where there is a link to watch them. The Planning Committee, pretty quiet. We haven't met as a committee for the last couple of months, so nothing to report there. BIA, we're actually meeting tomorrow night since the last meeting of November 10th. There has been some informal downtown chatter though, concerning the BIA. And generally it was, maybe one of the only silver linings to the whole COVID thing is that people are expected to shop more locally. So I was hoping, I know I spoke with Matthew about this, and we normally have the Christmas decorations up by parade time, which is of course mid-November. So he explained that was the reason they weren't going up. But just for next year, if we could just arrange for it, the Christmas decorations to be up by Black Friday, I think the vendors and the store owners would like that. And I think that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jansman. Councillor McConnell, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Just to start off with, council has been going in and out of my computer here tonight, and I'm not sure whether I have been or not. So I'm sure you'll let me know if this doesn't come across. To answer Councillor Jansman, as chair of the Heritage Committee, I'd like to take thanks for Founders Day and the work that was done, but I can't. That was all Fraser, and I would like to thank him for the amount of work that he has put in on it, as well as other things in town since he has left council. It's been much appreciated. Walker House, our normal Christmas potluck, or not potluck, but our normal Christmas dinner, which we celebrate in December every year. Susan is working on that now as a takeout and utilizing the arena as I understand it. I believe the day is yet to be locked down. It was supposed to be on the same day that we were having a COVID thing there, and that's just not going to work out. So stay tuned for that. I'm sure Susan will have that in the newspaper as soon as she can. The library board, library hours are changed a little bit, hopefully to attract more people to the library. Traditionally, we have been open through the week till 8 o'clock at night, opening at 1 in the afternoon. And we're going to try opening 2 mornings a week at 10. So we'll be working from 10 till 5 instead of 1 to 8, 2 mornings a week. The obvious question is, which are those 2 mornings a week? And despite the fact that I've been racking my brain, I can't seem to remember which 2 they are. So it's either Monday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Friday. And if the morning would suit you better to visit the library, then by all means, phone the library and get the hours for that. I attended my first official Shakespeare meeting Thursday night, and it accomplished, I think, what we intended as council for it to do, providing an open pipeline between us and Shakespeare. I was able to answer some questions for the board that they wouldn't have been able to have answered if I hadn't been there. And I can bring some things back to council from that meeting. The Shakespeare board is working diligently to bring us entertainment for next summer. What that will look like right now is kind of up in the air, but we fully expect that will continue next year. So that is it for me tonight, Mayor Todd. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor McConnell. And just a side note to that, because it hasn't come back formally to council yet, it's coming back next week. We did have an excellent meeting with a couple representatives of the Shakespeare board. Mr. Armstrong, Councillor Young in his capacity as deputy mayor, and myself did meet with the chair and vice chair of Shakespeare, Joanne Beckstead and Martin O'Hanlon. A couple of weeks ago, had an excellent conversation. They agreed to the official appointment of Councillor McConnell, and he agreed to accept, as he just mentioned. So we're bringing that back as part of our appointments bylaw next week to make that official. So all's well that ends well there, and good to see. And we'll have Councillor McConnell on there to be our conduit back and forth with the Shakespeare board going forward. So all around good news. Ray, you're saying something, but you're muted. I'm sure it's a joke. So
I was just asking if that was a Shakespeare quote, all's well that ends well.
There you go. It is now. So good stuff all the way around. So Councillor Ostrander, please.
Hey, Your Worship. Not a lot going on at my end of things. Connect Youth has had a bit of change. Couple of personnel have left. They've had one new hire. They're in the process of sourcing a executive director, and that's probably going to be as much a business manager as an executive director full-time position. So hopefully that'll be in place in the new year sometime. They continue to grow. They continue to have more involvement in a broader area, including Brockville and et cetera. So just one question for somebody, if they can answer it. How did the move of the Forwarders Museum items go here about 2-3 weeks ago? There was a 3-day period there where they were moving it to its new location. I just wondered how that went. I hadn't heard anything from anyone. So thank you.
Mr. Armstrong, quick comment on that. We've talked about it though, and it sounds like all has been going very well there.
So yes, everything was packed up by the moving company, and they moved it very efficiently, very effectively. At the same time, there was a manifest made of all of the items and where and how they were boxed. And so that way things were carefully cataloged to begin with, and then coming out the back end as well. So very happy to say that that occurred, and right now everything's still boxed up and in storage. And then over the next several months, we'll be working to build that into exhibits.
Good, thank you. Good news.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ostrander. Councillor Shankar, please.
Great, thank you very much. The chamber hasn't had a formal meeting of late, and there probably won't be a Christmas party. They are working on trying to do something with Santa, but I'm not sure. They had a lot of success with Santa, even at downtown in a shop and having visitors. They're talking about it, so hopefully they do something. I know the Wastewater Management Committee is meeting again this week. We met a few weeks ago. There's some questions there, so that should be an interesting meeting. I just want to take a minute to congratulate Miss Velkamp on becoming the town clerk, and Miss Mallory for becoming deputy clerk. And we wish Kimberly all the best in her new position. So I wanted to get that in there. And I was fifth, so I was like, oh, am I going to get it or not? All right, thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Shankar. Councillor Young, last but never least.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Our meeting with the St. Lawrence Lodge Board of Management occurred last week. Everything is going smoothly at the lodge. As of that date, about 10 days ago, we were COVID-free and hope to remain that way. The Board of Health management meeting, of course, COVID big on the agenda there, and we seem to be moving through everything as well as we can. So things are going smoothly at this moment. Hopefully they continue. Thank you.
Sounds good. And absolutely, we all certainly hope for that in our long-term care homes. One final note tonight, we will have an official announcement on this shortly. It's already sort of gotten out there a little bit, but we will be doing a tree lighting ceremony this Friday at 6 o'clock downtown at the tree. I see the decorations have gone up today, and so we look forward to starting the Christmas season. We will be doing the majority of this, of course. It will be sent out virtually. So if you are willing to go down and take part, please obey all the social distancing rules and regulations. But we do want to kick off the Christmas season in the downtown, and stay tuned as well. Later this week, we will have some Christmas surprises for the Fort Town coming up as soon as Friday, December 11th as well. But stay tuned on that. We'll have a few more official announcements to come forward in the next little bit. So we will be celebrating Christmas in Prescott, no fear, but it's just going to be a little bit different this time around simply because of our COVID-19 situation. So thanks everyone for the feedback there on the outside board. So moving along to item 12, staff, we do have 3 items here this evening. 12.1 is staff report 90-2020. That it's the 2021 council meeting schedule. recommendation being that council approve the 2021 summer council meeting dates be as follows: July 19th and August 23rd. Seems a long way right now, given how bitterly cold it is out there today. But and also that the 2021 December council meeting dates be as follows: December 6th and 13th. Do I have a mover for that, please? Moved by Councillor Burton, seconded by Councillor Shankar. Mr. Armstrong, any comment on that?
Actually, this is Ms. Velkamp's report.
Ms. Velkamp. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. As the report states, the procedural bylaw outlines the frequency of meetings. And during the months of July and August, one meeting of council will be held, and that's to be determined by council. So the two dates, July 19th and August 23rd, were decided in order to avoid the virtual AMO conference that's happening. And then the December meeting dates are being recommended based on our past couple years with the holidays in there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any comments, questions from members of council on our schedule for 2021? No, seeing none, I guess we're good then. I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Item 12.2 is staff report 91-2020, the updated animal control bylaw. This is being just brought to us tonight for information purposes, but we do have a motion that we receive the report for information and forward the revised animal control bylaw to the council meeting of January 4th, 2020 for final review and consideration. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Jansman, seconded by Councillor Burton. So we'll turn it over to staff. Mr. Merriman, you going to take us away on this exciting animal control bylaw?
We'll certainly give it a shot. Through you, Mr. Mayor. At the request of council, staff has reviewed and updated the town's animal control bylaw. The current bylaw was implemented back in 1994, and the last update or amendment took place in 2006. Some of the things that we were trying to do with this bylaw at the staff level was to make sure that it basically caught up with what technology and efficiencies that can be gained through modernization and using digital information. Highlights of the proposed update include the fact that right now the way it works is animal tags are sold every single year, and the public is expected to come into the offices every single year where they're granted a new tag. That's what's proposed. Won't happen like that in the future. In the future, you'll simply get your tag the first year. It'll have a number on it, but not necessarily a year. We will record what year we sold you the tag, but it won't actually have a year on the dog tag. The dog tag fee will be paid yearly, but the same tag will be used. To make it work more efficiently, staff will be purchasing a universal microchip reader to help us find lost owners of animals who have managed to lose their owners. This is just one more step. It doesn't simply replace the tag or the need for the tag, but it does allow us another opportunity to try to find owners quickly and efficiently. The animal tag billing will actually be sent out by the town in the first 3 months of the year, and we'll be providing additional payment options for the residents. Either they could do it electronically through the bank, or as is currently done, they can bring it into the office. Fees and enforcement provisions have been left at the current rates, but staff would suggest the following. Dog tags for the first dog tag would be $20 and then $10 in the future years. There would also be a $10 tag for a replacement fee if we needed to replace the tag because it got lost. Dog tags would remain mandatory, but a tag may also be purchased for any pet that was desired by the owner as staff is often asked by people if they could buy tags for other pets in their household. Enforcement fees are still staying the same, but staff is recommending that these fees be considered as, should they be doubled, as it has been since 1994, since they were last done. Currently, most of the fines right now are in the nature of $55 plus court fees, which takes it to 70, and the other ones are 105, and with court fees, it takes it up usually to 120. Some of the things that we have added to the bylaw is we also added dog park rules, because it's been fairly obvious through various surveys and feedback that a dog park is very desired in the town. And although there has been no place set aside for a dog park as of yet, we thought it was prudent to add the rules so that when a place is decided upon, everything's kind of in there already. So we just simply have to get some signage printed up and posted on the site versus reopening the bylaw. This new bylaw will have very minimal financial implications, because the universal reader is available for between $100 and $500, depending how fancy of a model we want it to get. Staff is also very willing to listen to any feedback or direction from council if you feel that certain numbers or certain things just don't work. The concept was to make sure that we covered all the things, as we learned from the planning application this year, that there was very limited rules regarding kennels. Even if someone had decided to open up a kennel in a commercial area, there was very limited rules on how they were expected to operate. Part of the things we tried to cover in this is said, even when there is a kennel, this is how it will operate, so that it stays appropriate to the town. That's my report, Mayor, and I'm more than happy to try to answer any questions that people may have.
Thank you very much, Sean. I'll open it up for comments and questions to the group. And of course, as noted before, nothing here is final tonight. Everyone has a few weeks as well to get feedback in after the fact. If anything comes up afterward, we are bringing this back, of course, in January for hopefully final discussion, but obviously that's not absolutely carved in stone as well. We obviously want to get these changes right and make sure everyone has plenty of time to provide feedback. So open it up for comments, questions this evening. Councillor Jansman.
Sean and Matthew allowed me to see a draft copy of this before this evening. And I'm glad Sean made mention of the kennel addition to the proposed bylaw, because as he mentioned, kennel isn't spoke of at all in the current one. So, but that's not to say that it wouldn't still comply with our zoning bylaw, in that it would still not be in residential areas, correct, Sean? Yeah. And our current one too, as you will notice, it currently says 2 dogs. This, you will see that will go up to, the proposed one is saying 3 dogs and or 3 cats. So that's not a significant change, but a change from the current bylaw that we have now. So I just wanted to note those differences. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jansman. Councillor Burton, please.
Thank you. Had a conversation with Sean earlier today. After reading the complete bylaw, I had a few recommendations, and just to let council be aware of some of the recommendations that I thought we could consider. I'm finding that just being the title, after it says the Corporation of Town of Prescott Animal Control Bylaw number 2021, and then it says being a bylaw to provide, I would just like to make it simple and just say being a bylaw to provide for the licensing and registering of dogs and so on. that was one of the recommendations that I had. I do find that some of the other animal control bylaws that I've researched over the last couple days, some don't have any restrictions at all in how many dogs or cats are allowed, and some do. I wouldn't recommend us putting a restriction on at this time. Maybe we consider, saying, not more than 10 animals or cats or dogs per resident, and not really putting a number on how many pets. During this time, I think that having a pet is very comforting to our residents, because we're not getting together and we're not going out and stuff. So if they want a few pets to have in the residence, I don't think that it's up to us to decide that they can only have 3 or 2 or 4. 10 is, I think, is excessive, but anything less than 10. So that could be considered. I also found our second whereas and our third whereas beginning of the bylaw is saying the same thing. So maybe we could just take out one of those, because it's basically saying that the Council of the Corporation of Town of Prescott deem it necessary to pass such a bylaw, and then it says Council wishes to update. So we're basically saying the same thing. So just to simplify things a little bit better there. And there was a few others that I'm not going to go through because it's too long, but I did send it into staff, and they're going to look at some of the other recommendations. But I just thought I would go through a couple tonight just to let council know. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burton. Other comments, questions tonight on the animal control bylaw? Councillor Ostrander, then Councillor McConnell, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sean, I had a chance to read the entire bylaw update over the weekend, and just a couple of housekeeping items, very minor. A couple of places in there you refer to the Prescott Police Service. They no longer exist, and I don't know whether it's fair to put the OPP's name in there if they would be involved in the animal situation or not, but I just thought perhaps that's a little misleading, or it's just outdated, I guess, maybe is the best way to put it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ostrander. Councillor McConnell, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Mike just brought up one thing that I was going to mention, and the OPP are definitely referred in there. So I guess the question would be, are they prepared to respond when called after hours to animal? I think that's something for the police board to maybe to discuss and report back on. I found it interesting when I was reading through this that when it was pointed out about the dog tags and the $20, and then it also referred that if you wanted to buy a tag for another animal, such as a cat or, I don't know, a pet rabbit or whatever, you could do so at the same terms. Councils for decades now, as we all know here, anybody that's been on for more than one term have been pussyfooting around with licensing cats. It's not a comfortable discussion. Whenever it comes up, we get inundated with folks who have cats that don't think cats should be licensed. But this is the way I believe that staff has attempted to sidestep it. We'll see how well it goes. It's a voluntary tagging system if you want. If you have a cat that is outdoors all the time and you're worried about it getting lost or picked up or nabbed, you can buy a tag for it. So I guess we'll have to see what we get in the way of comments, public comments on that. The only other thing I wanted to mention was it mentioned after hours complaints that people phoned in regards to a dog at loose or barking or what have you. And what it indicated was that after hours, it stated very specifically the hours that the bylaw control officer worked. After that, you were responsible to phone the pound or the police or a particular private enterprise that looks after wild animals, what have you. I have to wonder about that. Is that the way it works now? And it seems to me that the town should be more involved there than putting the onus on the individual taxpayer. And I apologize if this has already been discussed, but I lost the whole council for about 4 minutes when Sean was speaking, so it may be already addressed.
No, I don't believe so. Comment from staff?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may. The way the policy currently works now is, yes, the OPP is who is called when it's after hours by the residents when they have a concern. What currently happens now is the OPP dispatch gets a hold of myself and or Dave, depending on the situation, then depends whether or not we send out the animal control officer. Due to the fact that if a dog is running at large and is not easily corralled, there's very little purpose in sending the animal control officer out until it is corralled. And also when it comes to aggressive animals, the simple standard is to simply involve the OPP, as they're the ones currently equipped to deal with it in a more professional manner, I guess is the way to handle it. We've had probably 2 or 3 cases in the last couple of years where the OPP have become involved due to dog bites or aggressive dogs. And the policy, the concept was to continue with the same policy and procedure that, if there's not a bylaw officer around immediately, to involve the OPP, especially with aggressive animals.
Yeah, the OPP does handle bylaw complaints. That is part of the general deal. So if they are called about animal issues, they do respond off hours. Anything further, Councilor McConnell?
No, I just thought that the comment that's in the bylaw in regards to the taxpayer or the homeowner or apartment renter or whatever directly contacting a wildlife expert or trapper by themselves was less than I would expect. I would think that the town should be involved there. I don't think the taxpayers should have to do that by themselves. I mean, I can think of one night when I went to put my dog at the front door and there was a coyote walking down the sidewalk in front of my house. I would think that as a homeowner, there should be somebody that I could call rather than figuring out who looks after removing coyotes.
Sean, did you have another comment on that, just to clarify that?
I was just going to say, if you get a chance, Lee, I'll get you to send me that exact spot where you're concerned about the wording. And I'll certainly try to address it through better wording. The big thing is to remember that it still kind of does fall on the homeowner to at least assist the town in determining how to solve problems, because wildlife moves through the town. The problem is when wildlife either decides to stay in the town or becomes super aggressive in the town. And then at that point we get involved. It's about finding that right balance, because like I say, wildlife might be a coyote that could be extremely dangerous. It might also be a chipmunk that has created problems for a homeowner that at a certain point becomes the problem of the homeowner more than the town. So.
Good with that, Councilor McConnell. Try to address that before we bring it back.
Well, I only heard about half of that, but I think I got enough to say yes, and I will have a look at it tomorrow and email Sean with the exact cause that I was concerned with. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor McConnell. Other comments from other members of council on the bylaw this evening? Seeing none, I've got a couple myself. I just wanted to note one area I am having a little trouble with is Councilor McConnell did bring it up. Just the whole cat situation, and it's always been. I think we've got almost 2 decades of difficulties there, going back to before I came on council. They had quite the little wrangle over attempting to license cats. But I mean, the bylaw, it's pretty conspicuous in that it's dogs, 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 and I'm not seeing a whole lot of mention of cats in it, aside from the maximum, which I'm actually good with, the three total personally. But it's just we're not dealing with cats that can also be a nuisance, and when they are wandering, running at large. I mean, obviously, item 5 is just all about dogs, and a lot of those items could easily be transferred over to cats. And there are, and I know that's the age-old argument, people that put the cat out at night, but cats on their own at night can get into a bit of trouble and can do a little bit of damage. And we have had complaints in the past about cats running wild and getting into other people's property and so forth. So that is, that's something I think if we're going to do this, we should probably take a good look at that, at what would be the responsible approach with regards to cats. I'm not advocating anything specifically, but I think we do need to look at that, because if you're going to do an animal control bylaw, I think you've got to address cats, because there are quite a few cats in town, and there are quite a few that do run fairly free at night. The other item that I did want to mention is under item 6E, which reads about any dog pet seized and impounded not called for by the owner within 3 days may be sold by the pound keeper or may be destroyed in a humane manner by a designated veterinarian. I would not vote for this bylaw on E alone, simply because I think we've got enough rescue operations and so forth in the area that we don't have to allow for an animal to be put down in that situation. So I think we need to change E a little bit, and I think there are better, more humane options there than going straight to the possibility of destroying the animal after 3 days. So that's one area I would really like to be addressed. Other than that, I don't think I have any more comments. Anyone else have any last words? We can, as always, of course, email, and we are bringing this back on the first meeting in January to review the feedback and the suggestions. And of course, invite the public to comment as well, because obviously this is a bylaw that we want to work for the public in the town of Prescott. We need something that's responsible, works for all of us pet owners and not non-pet owners. So please send in your feedback on that as well to us through your friendly neighborhood councilor or directly to staff. Councilor McConnell, did you have another comment?
I want to thank you, Mayor Todd. I totally missed the put down portion that you just referenced to, and I agree completely. I would not vote for this if that is included. The other thing that I forgot to mention before is I think this chip reader that Sean wants to buy is an excellent idea, universal chip reader. I can give you an example about friends of mine in the US that lived in New Jersey, lost their dog. 6 years later, they were living in Morristown, got a call from the Syracuse veterinarian asking if they had a dog named Sam, and their dog was found 6 years later in Syracuse and was reunited with them. This chip thing is great. It works if you have your dog chipped. So I think it's really good, given the fact that we're on the 401. And I have seen people pulling in for gas, let their dogs run around the high school in the summer, and you never can tell when a dog is going to get loose. And this would certainly facilitate reuniting pets and owners. So I think that's an excellent idea as well.
Yeah, good point on that. It's a good idea to buy that chip reader. Fully support that as well. So if there are no further comments, then we do have to vote on the motion just to move this forward to the January council meeting. But any final comments before I call the question? Seeing none, I'll call the vote on moving this forward to January 4th, 2020 for final review and consideration. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thanks, Sean, for bringing this forward. And I think we've got good basis for a good modernized animal control bylaw here.
Thank you.
And moving on, we've got one more item under 12 tonight under staff. That's 12.3. That's the budget 2021 presentation, assumptions and information. Mr. Armstrong, do you want to review the assumptions and the information with us, please, tonight, and take us into your presentation? You are muted.
Thank you very much. So I'm just going to share my screen so that way it's a little bit easier to read. And then if there are any questions as we go through, by all means, don't hesitate to just let me know. You should be able to see the presentation on the screen now, I'm hoping. And I see some nodding, so that's great. So this evening, we're just going to go through the timelines, revenue assumptions, one-time infrastructure funding, property tax information, as well as expense assumptions, and property tax target. So as we discussed at a more recent meeting, we identified how we'd be moving forward through the budgeting process. So in our next meeting, we'll be talking about health and social services. January 4th, we'll be talking about administration, protective services, planning and development, as well as the initial review of our capital. January 18th will be transportation, parks and rec, followed by, at the same meeting, taking a look at our large-scale infrastructure projects. February 1st, environmental and water and wastewater budgets, followed by the 15th of February, looking at revenue taxation and hopefully doing a prioritization of our capital and operational projects. That leaves us at March 1st, being able to take a high-level view, as well as starting to align the budget with our service delivery review, as well as our strategic plan. So really that's how, from a graphical standpoint, how it looks like over the next 6 meetings. So from a revenue perspective, our Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, OMPF, will increase to 1.588 million in 2021. This is an increase of $36,000 or 2.3%. Interest on our high interest savings account is not likely to recover to the pre-COVID level of in 2021. So as I mentioned earlier, our pre-COVID amount in January and February was 2.415%. Currently, we're earning 0.915%, and at effective January 1st, which we just received notice of last week, it will be dropping to 0.165%. So when we take a look, what effect does that have on the overall budget? It's a negative $112,000. We're unlikely to see marriage licenses, lottery licenses, and wedding fees, as well as Commissioner Vos, return to pre-COVID levels. And I mentioned earlier that had about a $20,000 effect. Unlikely that criminal reference checks will recover to 2021 levels, and that had approximately a $7,000 effect. The outstanding property taxes, as I mentioned, have gone down in 2019, as well as stabilizing in 2020, and so we're not earning as much interest and penalties, and so that's expected to decrease by about $30,000. Provincial offenses is unlikely to return to pre-COVID levels in 2021, as the courts will be remaining closed until at least March 31st, and quite likely longer than that. Recreation and tourism revenue, it's unknown at this time because we have no clear indication of what our health and safety restrictions will be for next year. Our OSIF funding is remaining stable at $267,026, which is what we use to support our repaving budget. And we're likely to have some portion of the $266,000 in provincial COVID funding available in 2021 to help offset some of these items. When we take a look at the one-time infrastructure funding, so there was a recent announcement about $100,000, $100,516 that municipalities, in particular Prescott, or all municipalities, are receiving at least $100,000. So this is a completely federal and provincial funded grant. There is no requirement to have a municipal share. Single projects are due December 21st. Multiple projects are due January 7th. So construction must begin by September 30th of 2021. And because we have a population of less than 5,000, then we would be allowed to have the project finished by December 31st of 2022. If we weren't in that category, then it would have to be finished by the end of 2021. There's 4 basic categories that the projects can fit under. One is retrofit repairs and upgrades to municipal buildings. Another is actual making changes to the building in terms of physical distancing or health and safety retrofits due to COVID-19. Another being after transportation, including parks, trails, footbridges, bike lanes, multi-use paths, and finally disaster mitigation and adaptation, and being able to respond to those. Our understanding is category 2 and category 4, you have to show a clear demonstration of how it links to COVID-19. And a project can only be part of one category. You can't apply for one project under multiple categories. So when we started to sit back and think about what our possibilities would be, certainly over the last couple of years, we've talked about redoing the portions of either Heritage Trail and or the walkways that go in Centennial Park. Certainly the Centennial Park ones have received a fair amount of water damage over the last couple of years, and so could use either moving or help and support. Well, at the same time, if they were to be widened, you could probably, or most likely, be able to use them as not only a walking path, but a cycling path as well. That includes the trail that runs along the front of the Deepwater Dock. We've talked previously about having a shade structure in Riverwalk Park, and we have been investigating several options for that, and being able to still provide sun, and that it wouldn't completely block the light, but it would provide some shade. And so taking a look in the center of the park where kind of the paths meet on a crisscross basis, then being able to do something there. Also along the path, being able to provide bicycle rack storage and being able to lock them up, shade structures along the waterfront paths, and finally also looking at lighting along those paths, just to improve not only safety, but the hours in which people would be comfortable to use them. So really, those are some of the things that we thought of from taking a look at previous year's capital lists, as well as how does it fit in with the requirements for this particular grant. And so are putting those forward. That being said, we have to get our application in by the 21st of December. So the intention is to really start the conversation this evening, have council provide feedback over the next 3 or 4 days, which would be December 10th, so that we can bring this back for final decision and discussion on December 14th in preparation for that application date on December 21st.
Matthew, can I interrupt you for just a second?
Certainly.
Although I like all your suggestions about how to utilize, bullet 3, the active transportation, could bullet 1, retrofits, repairs, and upgrades to municipal buildings, could the finishing of the 2nd floor of our town hall qualify for something like that?
We saw it mostly being in terms of updates due to COVID-19. So they'd put HVAC units in there, some things like that. So we didn't necessarily see it as qualifying under that particular line item. We have previously approved those budget amounts
right, yeah.
for the finishing. So that's really what our thinking was behind that was, does this qualify for COVID-19? And really the only area where it seemed to give us a little bit of leeway was in the active transportation side. Everything else was much more COVID-19 related.
Okay, thanks.
So from a property tax information, so the scheduled property tax revaluation was to occur in 2021. However, it's been postponed to an unknown future date. So really what that means is whatever someone's assessment was for the 2020 taxation year for property taxes, it will be the same for 2021. So many municipalities, including ours, had a natural increase from people having their phased in adjustments phased in over the 4 years of the assessment cycle. So like every municipality in Ontario, we will not see that in 2021. So therefore, only things that have been added to the assessment roll, such as any new housing developments or any major renovations or work, is going to be the only growth that we will see. At this point, that only amounts to about 1.2 million. And when you take a look at the tax rate on that, then it's only going to produce about $16,000. So as opposed to anything close to 1%. So certainly we wanted to highlight that, that it will be, any increases will be difficult because they're not going to be automatically generated through assessment growth. Province is allowing each municipality to define a small business subclass for commercial properties. We are waiting on additional information from that because they've worded it in a way that would allow every municipality to define something that may be different. And small business property in one municipality may very well be different from what another municipality might define it as. So we don't quite understand how that's going to work from an administrative standpoint or how we would be able to interact with MPAC on that. So certainly additional information that we're looking at. The government did put a caveat in there that they may consider offsetting decreases in property taxes when using this subclass, but there was no firm commitment. So if we were to make a decision to implement this and reduce the taxes on small businesses, there was no firm commitment that we would be able to receive funding to offset that decrease from another level of government. And so really at this point, I would recommend that we seek additional information. And as we go through the budget process, I would keep council apprised as to how that seems to be rolling out, as well as what other municipalities are considering from using that small business subclass so that we can get a better understanding of what that might look like.
Councilman McConnell, you had your hand up a moment ago. Question?
No, just a comment basically on what Matthew indicated about the reassessment. I don't know how we would explain this, but I got a notice from the assessment office last week. And I know we'd already discussed that and there was nothing supposed to be forthcoming. But I suspect if I got a notice, then likely other people in town did as well. So I don't know how you explain that. It's not supposed to be coming, but apparently it is. I just want to throw that in.
So I think my in-laws had the exact same question. And when you take a look at the notice, it still says it's the 2016 base year value. So you're right. I think it does cause some confusion. And many taxpayers did receive a notice to say this is your assessment value, but I'm willing to bet that it hasn't changed unless you've done some type of renovation or provided them with additional information that it has made a change.
Okay, thank you.
I'd be happy to follow up with you with that.
No, there was no change, so I don't want to rock the boat.
Okay. Okay, so looking at expenses, so this is ending on December 31st is our contract with CUPE, and so we don't know what the cost of living increases would be at this time. We'd have to go through the negotiation process, and certainly I will seek council's advice as to how the position they would like to take. We were informed that as of November, our employee benefits are going up by 16.1%. So long-term disability and life are pooled as part of a larger group, which was beneficial for us to join other municipalities in this. So we'd only increase by 5%. However, healthcare and dental benefits did increase by 18%, and that's mostly due to high-cost drugs being included in the plan. And so certainly there's seeing that throughout the marketplace as we continue to move forward and new drugs become available that are higher priced. So the recommendation would be that we would go out to market in 2021 to see if there are additional savings elsewhere by moving to another carrier, and just making sure that we're getting the best possible deal when we're looking at that. Liability insurance, also property and liability insurance went up. Total was 12.3% was our renewal. Property tax insurance, the rate didn't change, but the replacement bill cost on some of the buildings did change. We did have an inspection on several of our buildings this year, and taking a look at the current state of the buildings as well as the replacement value, then some of those did go up. The liability portion of our insurance increased by 15%. All customers, from what we understand, received a minimum of a 10% liability increase. And further to that, we've learned that many of our neighboring municipalities and across Eastern Ontario, if not Ontario, are looking at 30 to 40% increases. So certainly we were helped by the fact that we have a low claim rate and low payout rates over the last several years. But it's across the industry that we're seeing very large increases from a liability perspective.
Matt, I've got Councillor McConnell with a question, but just a quick one ahead of that. You've got the percentages, and the percentages themselves are quite shocking. What are we talking about dollar values here?
So in terms of the benefits increase, it's approximately $25,000 per year. In terms of the liability increase, it's approximately $24,000 per year.
So we're talking about a 1% tax increase based on these numbers alone, basically.
Correct.
Okay, thank you very much for that information. It does seem to be kind of a reality right now. I mean, I think if we all talked about this anecdotally, we've probably all seen our insurance start to go up the last year. So it's probably not entirely unexpected, but it's a little sobering. Councillor McConnell, you had a comment or question?
I had a question, but you already asked it, Mayor Todd. The dollar figure is always better than a percentage. It gives us an idea what we're actually talking about. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So
Matt?
from a services perspective, we're expecting, we're budgeting a 2% increase until we know, we haven't seen the 2021 joint services budget as of yet. And so once that's better known, then we will include it as part of our calculations and our understanding. The public health expenses, so for Lanark, Leeds, and Grenville Public Health, they're expected to be the same as 2020. They're just awaiting confirmation that the transition funding that the government announced will be applicable to 2021. And so no increase there. And then OPP costing for 2021 will be just a little bit over 1.2 million. It's an increase of $5,500 from the prior year, or about a 0.5% increase.
It's just got to comment on that one briefly. It's always good to see the OPP billing. It's good news every year pretty much now, and it declined for so long, and now we're seeing these very small increases. And it wasn't that long ago that we really kind of had to hold our breath and see just how much we were going to be billed. And we were over $2 million there before the funding formula was changed. So nice to see that we've got some pretty fixed costs there with the OPP now, and it's declined dramatically in the last 5 or so years.
So that brings us to a property tax target. And so really that's one of the things that we want to talk about this evening, so that we can understand when we're putting the budget together, what we're aiming for in terms of an increase or decrease. So for 2020, the property taxes increase was reduced to 0%. We reduced the increase in the sidewalk budget, repair budget. We did not increase the annual contribution to our infrastructure reserve for 2020, as well as we reduced the repairs to town hall. So really what we're trying to do this evening is understand what tax council would like us to take in terms of what percentage increase, if any, we are targeting for 2021. So at this point, I'm just going to stop the slideshow and then pass it over to you, Mr. Mayor, for the discussion portion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Armstrong. So just to make this easy, let's just go around the table alphabetically, just quick comments and observations on this with regards to the main questions on what people are looking for in terms of a property tax increase. Barring, of course, we do have a lot more information to be presented in the weeks and months ahead. But if we could just go around the table and just get everyone's comments on this so staff has some feedback. Councilor Burton, do you mind kicking us off?
Thank you. I'm not too sure if I can comment at this time. I would like to see a little bit more information to see how we can crunch the numbers a little bit. It would be nice if we didn't have an increase, but I'd like to wait and see what staff can come up with. So thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Councillor Jasmine.
I know in our last budget, we did make a 0% increase, and normally I'm just not an advocate for that, and the situation hasn't really changed much since then, and it doesn't look like it's going to in the near future. But at the same time, this, the pages of 56 of the 63 when it comes to the benefits increase and the QP negotiations, and like we have a lot of expenses we're looking at by the looks of things. So I don't think we can afford to look at a 0% increase again. And so I would not, I would expect to see some kind of proposed increase from staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jasmine. Councillor McConnell, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I was fully in favor of the 0% tax increase last year. And as Teresa just mentioned, given the news that Matthew has just presented us, it doesn't look like we will be able to do that for this year. We cut some programs that I would rather not have seen cut last year, sidewalks in particular, to get us down to 0. And I don't know if we can do that a second year. However, we do have some resources this year that we didn't know about last year when we were setting our budget. We have that fund, the modernization fund. There may be a possibility of sliding something from that into covering part of our budget. I don't know. We have the $266,000 that the province gave us for COVID-related expenses. There may be something in there that we can slide into for budget purposes. We also have this $100,000 that Matthew referred to that we can use. We can apply for rather and use. It costs nothing. It's a federal and provincial gift, essentially, and perhaps there is something there that we can use to cover. So the possibility still exists of a very small tax increase, but I think it's going to be up to staff to search these things and maybe word things very precisely so that these things can be utilized in formulating our new budget. And the transportation area that Matthew was saying that he kind of focused on for the $100,000, I tend to agree with him. There is a couple of things though that I would like to see slid into there that have been missing for a while, and they are in the walking area. There are a lot more people out walking now, and we certainly encourage that with the fresh air in Prescott and the fact that we're not walking right on top of each other. There are two spots, though, that if you're walking from west to the east along the river are trouble spots. in front of the United Counties building, where there's a cement sidewalk and it wraps around and it comes back to the foot of George Street. A lot of people go down George Street, then access that sidewalk. There is no connection there. There's a space of about, I don't know, 20, 25 feet, where if you are handicapped, you cannot access that sidewalk. It's there's a curb, there's a drainage ditch. If we could do something with that 25 feet to make that into some kind of a walking area that is accessible for everybody, then I think that would certainly be allowable under that program. The other thing is right at the very west end of the Coast Guard base on the south side of King Street, the sidewalk comes down there at such an angle that it floods. And when it floods, it freezes in cold weather. And it means that if you're walking, you actually have to get out onto the street. And if there is traffic coming, if there's cars parked there, it's dangerous. I discussed with Matthew at one point in time about putting a drain in kind of that low spot that would access a sewer on the outside of the sidewalk that might very possibly alleviate that situation. And I think that would be a good use of that money as well. Both of those things enabling people to walk safely from one end of Prescott to another along the water. Thank you, Mayor Todd.
Thank you very much, Councillor McConnell. Councillor Ostrander, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just took particular notice of the cost of benefits and insurance and that for employees. That's a little disheartening as well. But then again, out in the private sector, it's the same thing. They're faced with increase in insurances. To get benefits nowadays is it's an expensive thing for the employer, and well, I don't know if it affects our salary increase or and takes it down to the bare minimum. That may be the end result's hard to say. There's a lot going on in that whole package, and we sort of have to pick and choose and dissect it somewhat to see where it best suits us. And that's gonna take a bit of work for staff and for us as we go back and forth on that a bit. Thank you.
Very much. Mike, Councillor Shankar, please.
Thank you. So I agree with a lot of the points that have been made so far. I think there's a bit more work to do. I was a little bit, concerned with some of the numbers that have gone up in our benefits and insurance. And the question was asked, what was the dollar figure? Can I just repeat that for me, Matthew?
Both of them are in the $25,000 range.
So 50,000 total.
Roughly 50, which is about a 1% tax increase.
Okay. And I did notice that we did not increase the annual contribution to infrastructure fund last year. Did we have?
We didn't put anything. We didn't. It wasn't that we didn't increase it. We didn't put anything in there.
Right, and I think we should get back to that because that's something that we can easily skip for another year, and then the next thing you know, it's 10 years down the road and we haven't put it in. So I think we should look at that. I mean, I know that our residents would probably like to see another 0% tax increase. If that's the case, we're going to really have to sharpen our pencils. But let's take a closer look at that in January. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Corey. Councillor Young, please.
Thanks, Brett. Question first, Matthew, on page 51 of your presentation under revenue. That 0.165 effective January 1st, 2021, is that part of our Royal Bank agreement?
No, actually. So this is actually the high interest savings account that we use under LAS as well as the One Investment Fund. And so, which is considerably higher than anything the bank would give us on our savings.
All right, I'm still confused. That's not the $1 million that we put aside a couple of years ago?
So the $1 million is in a separate fund. It's the equity fund, and so it
Right.
goes ups and down with the
Wastewater.
stock market.
Right, okay. So this 165, is there any way to do something else with that money on a short-term basis?
We will certainly take a look at that. It's all municipalities that belong to the One Investment Fund were just informed last week that would be dropping as of January 1st. So One Investment did say that they're looking at alternatives. We too will work with our bank and look at alternatives to see if there's an option to increase that.
Okay, thank you. As far as the proposed tax increase for 21, it's been made clear by the mayor and others that we have a 1% increase right off the bat before we start doing anything on just those two items. I don't think I would favor a 0% again. We have to get back on track with that infrastructure fund. On the other hand, we did have a significant surplus last year, and I'm not sure where we put it in terms of financial accounting as of the end of 2019. I think we put it into the general surplus fund, but the numbers that you showed us earlier this evening, that might also indicate that we're headed for a surplus. So perhaps it's time to look at bringing forward a surplus to bolster the infrastructure fund and or mitigate larger increases in taxes for 2021. But I think we'd be wise not to do 0%. I think we have to start putting a little bit back on the taxes.
Thank you very much, Councillor Young. Yeah, just my own 2 cents. I'd agree with what everyone said. We do have to get back to the infrastructure fund. I've always been the really strong advocate for that when we first brought it to council and introduced it years ago, as it was a number of other municipalities were doing it. It seemed like good financial planning, and Gory's really got it nailed there. You let it go 1 year, then you let it go 2. Then next thing you know, it looks like you're adding a 1% tax increase, and it just becomes harder and harder to put it back in. So I definitely be strongly in favor of adding that back in. We do have, as we noted earlier, the 1% that's right off the top of our staff expenses. That's going to add 50 right there. So that is obviously a 1% increase. So unless we can really sharpen our pencils administratively, and I just say it for people that may be watching and for media out there, we're very, very lean in administrative costs already. That's always been a major focus of us at Town Hall and this council and previous councils. And I think we've done a good job of holding the line there. So it may be awfully tough to absorb that 1%, which looks like a pure increase this year. So I don't think the 0 is going to be sustainable, and it was never intended to be either. I mean, obviously we are still in a serious situation here with COVID and the damage it's done to our health and our economy. But at the same time, we have to continue planning for the future and making sure that we put in place reasonable increases over time, rather than that shock of a sudden multi percentage point increase 1 year to try to catch up. We all want to avoid that. So obviously we're going to have to look at that. I just had another comment, well, a couple of comments on the modernization fund. We do have some dollars left there, but we've got to be careful about dipping into it too much, or we'll find it gone, because it was only around, what was the total, Matt? Around 600?
591, 400.
591? So roughly 600K, and we're down. Do you have the number what we're down to already?
Just to make it easy, about 500,000.
We have left?
Yes.
But that doesn't include what we still have to spend with Augusta, right? With the ECDEV study.
I think it does. So I think we've only spent about 100 so far.
Okay.
Actually, we took a bit more than that out for St. Lawrence Lodge too. Wasn't
Yep.
that over 100?
So I think we have 75 plus 20, and then there's the amount that we're going to spend over 3 years for the software. So I think we're at the 100 to 120 mark.
Okay, that's a little better than I thought we were at, but still, the point remains we can't use it as a kind of an operational slush fund. It was given us for specific purposes with modernization, so we just got to be a little careful about that. But the other comment I did just want to make on the active transportation, obviously that was on page 54. Matt really summarized that well. So if everyone could look at that, and if there's any feedback, provide it by December 10th so we can review the final terms of the application by December 14th. I think it's fantastic that we do have this, and it's not a tremendous amount of money when you talk about how far it's going to have to go with some of the shortcomings we have along the river, especially with the flooding that we saw back in 2017, and then again I think in 2019. So there is some work that needs to be done there. Some of those pathways definitely need some work. Both the heritage pathway and across into Centennial as well, and even in Riverwalk. The shade structure is a good idea. I think there's a real need for a structure for shade too alongside the pool on the south side with regards to parents with their kids at the pool and even at the neighboring splash pad. Also even the beach. This actually would represent a good investment in an area that a lot of people are utilizing now. We get a good point with the number of people that are walking. We also saw that in the summer with the number of people using the beach, and we have no guarantees, obviously, that the pool is going to be able to be opened again next year. And I think regardless of that, we will see a lot of people down there with a full season of the splash pad and the beach. We had record crowds at that beach all this past year, and this should be no surprise to anybody, because I've been kind of beating on this drum for a while that we should invest a little more in the beach. We do have some improvements planned there that have been postponed due to some circumstances the last couple of years with regards to the wall along the Coast Guard and a couple things with the building, the pool building. But I mean, we do need to do a little more down there. There are a few areas that we're having difficulties with. The wall that was built is starting to really crumble alongside the beach, and we've experienced a number of issues this year with the other wall along the top that's leaning to the point of caving in. That's the wooden wall, and it's got some spikes sticking out of it as well that had to be repaired on a few occasions this summer. So that's actually a pretty serious safety issue on both regards. And obviously, if there's a way we can do something to expand the beach a little bit, I think it's really time to look at it now in an age of social distancing. So many people. So I think this all ties in really nicely. It's good to get some funding for it where we can improve our waterfront all the way around. So just wanted to note that again. And anyone has any other suggestions that we can focus on in that active transportation funding related to COVID, please forward them on by the 10th, and we'll have to get that back obviously by the 21st. So we have to approve it at our next meeting next week. So that's coming up pretty quick. So if anyone has any ideas, please get them forward. Councilor McConnell, did you have your hand up a moment ago as well? Did you have a final comment?
I did, Mayor Todd. I lost the reception just as Ray started to speak. So if he's mentioned this again, I apologize. But when we decided last year to forego the raise and also to forego the 1% extra for the infrastructure fund, Ray mentioned at the time his desire that if there was a surplus, we wound up with this year, that the first $50,000 go into that infrastructure fund. I don't know if we ever actually made that official or not. And as of right now, we don't know whether we have a surplus or not. But I think it's perhaps worth discussion when we actually know whether we do or not, because if we do have a surplus, I think that was a good idea Ray had.
Good reminder on that. So keep an eye on that when we have the final numbers there prepared, and we can make that decision for sure at that point. Mr. Armstrong, anything further before we leave off? We do have health, social services, and of course the program that we talked about as well coming back next week. Anything else you'd like to leave off on tonight, budget wise?
Just if the feedback on the infrastructure application can be received by midday on Thursday, that'd be great. So that way it can make its way into the council agenda for next Monday.
Great, thank you very much. And so that was just presented basically for information purposes this evening. So thanks very much, Mr. Armstrong, for the report tonight. Good discussion. Gets us started. Obviously, a long way to go, as Councillor Burton mentioned off the top there, that we do have a lot of numbers to process yet and a lot of decisions to make. But please get your information into to staff on that one program by the as early as possible, but by midday Thursday, please, so they can get that into the report. We can include all that information on the agenda for next week. Okay, so moving along we move along to item 13, resolutions, none this evening. We do have under 14 bylaws, though, two bylaws to note, both appointments, both happy news. And 14.1 is a clerk appointment, the recommendation being that bylaw 51-2020 being a bylaw to authorize the appointment of Lindsay Veltkamp as clerk for the corporation of the town of Prescott be read and passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed by the seal of the corporation. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Young, seconded by Councillor Burton. I don't think there's going to be a lot of discussion here, but a lot of congratulations. Lindsay, you have all our confidence, as we mentioned before. We know you're going to do a fantastic job in this position. All the best, and we really look forward to working with you further, as moved on from deputy clerk the last 4 or 5 years now. Has it been? Has it really been that long?
Deputy clerk only for about 18 months.
But
total, with the town, almost 5.5 years.
5.5. It's incredible too with Kimberly too, who just left us, of course, Kimberly Castle, in 6 years. So time does fly. But thanks for accepting this position, and again, all congratulations. And we know you're going to do an amazing job. Any comments from anyone else before I call the vote? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Then all in favor? Approved. And another appointment tonight, another long-standing employee in Caitlin Mallory. So our deputy clerk appointment, and the recommendation reads that bylaw 52-2020, being a bylaw to authorize the appointment of Caitlin Mallory as deputy clerk for the corporation of the town of Prescott, be read and passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed by the seal of the corporation. Caitlin, congratulations again. This is it's nice to have you working even more fully with us at council. It's a move up from. How many years has it been with you? It's been a while as well now. Is it 3 or 4?
5, yep.
Sorry, 5?
Yep.
Wow, that's it's incredible how time flies. But congratulations so much. And again, you have all our faith and confidence, and we look forward to working with you more fully here at the council table as our deputy clerk. Any comments from anyone else this evening? Councillor Young.
And your enthusiasm, Mayor Todd. I don't think we have a mover and a seconder on that, but I would be happy to move it.
Absolutely. So moved by Councillor Young, seconded by Councillor Burton. Any further comments? Okay, before I call the vote, then congratulations again to Caitlin, and all in favor. Motion's carried. And can we do the usual press release announcing the 2 staff promotions? Okay, so item 15, new business. Any new business any member of council would like to present this evening? Seeing none. 16, notices of motion. I understand we do have a notice of motion to be presented tonight, and we'll look at waiving the rules of procedure for this to move this one along. Councilor McConnell, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor Todd. This notice is in support of 2 resolutions, one by Loyalist Township and the town of Plimpton, Wyoming, which is in Ontario, believe it or not. I have no idea where, but I was surprised. I'd never heard of it before. And it's in regards to the support to private organizations that are hurting under the COVID and that are not supported by any government monies coming forth right now. Whereas the World Health Organization characterized COVID-19 as a pandemic on March 11th, 2020, And whereas travel restrictions were put in place March 21st, 2020, with emergency orders being established under the Quarantine Act. And whereas the province of Ontario entered a state of emergency on March 17th, 2020. And whereas the town of Prescott declared a state of emergency on March 23rd, 2020. And whereas the Leeds-Granville Lanark District Health Unit have enacted orders under Section 22 of the Ontario Health Protection and Promotion Act 1990, and whereas the above noted state of emergencies and orders restricted the ability for charities, community groups, and service clubs to raise or acquire funds through conventional methods, and whereas these charities, community groups, and service clubs provide vital resources and support critical to community members, and whereas these charities, community groups, and service clubs partner with municipal governments, reducing the financial pressures on the government while enhancing the lives of residents, and whereas the Corporation of Loyalist Township passed a resolution regarding fundings for charities, community groups, and service clubs affected by the COVID-19 pandemic at their regular meeting of council on September 28th, 2020, and the Corporation of Prescott now wishes to also support this resolution. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Prescott request confirmation from the governments of Ontario and Canada that funding will be available for these local smaller charities, community groups, and service clubs. And further, that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Right Honourable Prime Minister of Canada, the Honourable Premier of Ontario, MP Michael Barrett, Leeds, Granville, Thousand Islands, and Rio Lakes MPP Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO, Rural Ontario Municipalities Association, Roma, and municipalities within Leeds and Granville. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor McConnell. And you did bring this forward. I think you mentioned this some time ago, right, when it came back for the information package.
I did.
So we did look at not going through the whole process with notice of motion and bringing it back tonight. So Ms. Veldkamp, the procedure here for waiving the rules of procedure. So in what order do we do the motions?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. The beginning of the notice of motion does have that the rules of procedure be suspended to allow to consider the following motion be regarding funding for charities, community groups, and service clubs affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, in order to have the motion circulated to the list that Councillor McConnell provided in a timely fashion. So that is part of the motion.
Okay, so we're good just voting once on this then?
Yep. Yes.
Excellent, thank you. Just wanted to absolutely clarify that. It's not a huge issue of procedure because this is a pretty straightforward item. So Councillor McConnell, you're making that motion. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Shankar, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks very much for bringing that forward, Councillor McConnell. So any other notices of motion to be brought forward by members of council this evening? Seeing none. So 17, Mayor's Proclamation, none tonight. Takes us right to 18, closed session. And we do have one closed session item under 18.1, identifiable individual. The recommendation is that council move into closed session at 7:50 p.m. to address a matter pertaining to identifiable individual under section 239 2B of the Municipal Act 2001, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and that the CAO, treasurer, clerk, and deputy clerk remain in the room. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Ostrander, seconded by Councillor Young. I think because we can probably wrap this up fairly quickly, so we'll move into this without a break. All those in favor? Motion carried.